good job of finding a way. We started to expand that fist, and then we came back together. Now, we know we got a lot of stuff we got to work on, but being able to come away and withstand what we withstood in that run, and to be able to pull together, get some key stops, shot C.
Yeah, hell yeah,
Great pass, so.
I am no body language expert, and I know Caitlin Clark and Steph White are pretending to be besties. There's no tension here. You're mistaking tension with respect and love. And look, maybe I am looking too much into this, but the body language, the facial expressions on Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, it looks like the faces of players who have absolutely no respect for their head coach. Something is seriously wrong right now with the Indiana Felines. Take a look at this. These are the ticket prices about an hour before the game started last night. Caitlin Clark, who is, without a doubt, the biggest star in a league filled with wannabe stars, and tickets are selling for less than $10. Club seats, $33. You can sit a few feet away from the court for less than $200. Uncle Casey, this isn't fair. It was a Monday night game against the Phoenix Masculines. The Masculines are the worst team in the league. Yeah, I'm sure that will be the excuse if enough people mention the dozens of empty seats in the lower bowl last night. But this is not a one-off. This isn't the first time this season where the Indiana Clarks failed to sell thousands of cheap seats at home. Now, in fairness to Caitlin Clark, we often see empty seats in the NBA throughout an 82-game regular season. With 41 home games, not every game is going to be packed or a sellout. But we don't usually see this with major stars in the NBA. The WWE Thunder, they have no problem selling tickets. The Knicks, the Lakers. I guarantee you, Cooper Flagg will have no problem selling tickets this upcoming season. Tomorrow night, the Indiana Clarks play the Phoenix Masculines at home again. And once again, tickets are selling for $10. The Fever organization, they can ignore this if they want, but there is a serious problem in Indiana, and I think it's a leadership problem. I watched the first half of that game last night. Believe it or not, I actually wanted to watch the full game because I knew I was going to be talking about this today. But after 2 quarters of unbelievably bad basketball, my wife said that we had to watch something that wouldn't sedate her. Uncle Casey, you're the man of the house. You have to be the king of your castle. Yeah. Yeah, once you get older, you develop more experience, more wisdom. You realize you have to pick and choose your battles. And Uncle Casey just isn't willing to fight to watch the absolute worst product on television. That game last night sucked. I mean, it sucked. It felt like I was watching a funeral. I'm used to seeing an energetic crowd in Indianapolis. When the game started last night, you could hear a mouse farting in the rafters. It was complete silence. The Indiana Clarks, they came out flat. They had no energy as a team. 2 teams who claim to be filled with professional basketball players, they combined for 25 points in the first quarter. And the Indiana Clarks, they were only responsible for 6 of those points. 6 points in 10 minutes. Going into the second quarter, the broadcast on USA, they mentioned Stephanie White's message to her team during the break between quarters. We need to focus on defense, team. We need to be better defensively. Focus on what? Defense? You held the masculines to 19 points in the first quarter. Defense wasn't your problem. Problem is, you only scored 6 points against the worst team in the league. Yesterday morning, a dude named Pope B. Frank, he interviewed one of Stephanie White's former players. This young woman had the misfortune of playing for Stephanie White when she was actively destroying the program at Vanderbilt, kind of like she's doing now in Indianapolis. Now, according to the media, Steph White is one of the best coaches in the league. This woman is amazing. According to one of her former players, Stephanie White is a locker room cancer. Watch for yourself.
Our star players would be hurt all the time. They weren't taken care of the way they needed to be taken care of. We didn't really go over what we did wrong ever, honestly. We just kind of watched. We didn't really break anything down the way we should have, I don't think. She'd run us to death, so then our legs are tired for the game. Just a really toxic environment, very toxic environment. Teammates were put against each other. She would tell certain teammates things and then another person this. It was just strange, just all weird.
Look, I was initially skeptical when Caitlin Clark fans were complaining about Steph White. No offense to her fan base, but they're kind of known to whine. They're known to over-dramatize. They incessantly defend their imaginary girlfriend, which is fine. That's what fans are supposed to do. But I have been following this situation over the last couple of weeks, which is why I have been wasting my time watching some of these games. It is abundantly clear. There is a leadership problem in Indiana. The one word that caught my attention when Pope Frank was speaking with the former player from Vanderbilt, toxic. When Steph White was at Vanderbilt, she was taking over a winning program. Prior to the arrival of the Great White Dope, Vanderbilt had made the women's tournament every year since 1999, except 1 year. The Great White Dope arrives in 2016. Take a guess. Just take a wild guess as to how many times Vanderbilt qualified for the women's tournament under the leadership of Steph White. I'll give you a clue. It matches the number of dates with real women, not inflatable women, not automated women. It matches the number of dates with real women that lonely men on Reddit have went on this year. None. By 2021, the Great White Dope had inflicted so much damage, Vanderbilt had to cancel their season. Why? They didn't have enough players. 9 players decided to quit or transfer just to get away from the captain of the LGBT Titanic. Uncle KC, this happened 5 years ago. Maybe Steph White has changed. 3 years ago, she was the coach of the year in pretend basketball. Well, if that's the case, I am not seeing the change. In 2024, the Indiana Clarks, they weren't a great pretend basketball team. They were good, but they weren't great. But there was camaraderie. Players enjoyed playing with each other. This year, it looks like they're just going through the motions. There's a complete lack of energy. There's a lack of motivation. They're often down double digits in the first and third quarters. All signs of poor coaching or a team who doesn't believe in their head coach. Either way, it is a flaming ass fire. Let me ask you something. Have you ever worked for a toxic leader? Have you ever worked for someone that you didn't like, you couldn't stand them? What was that experience like for you? How did it affect your work performance? Back in 2013, when I was just starting out at my old job, there was one salesman in the office that couldn't get along with anyone. On paper, He was a great salesman, good performer. Problem was, we couldn't stand to be around him. He was constantly complaining. He was constantly creating drama. Thing is, he wasn't always wrong, but you weren't willing to listen to him when he was right because he was the constant source of problems. Even though they are playing a game for a living, this is still a job. The dynamics are no different than any other job. There are 15, maybe 20 people in that locker room between coaches and players. All it takes is one to destroy the locker room. When the cancer is coming from a role player, when it's someone like Dewana Bonner last season who was demanding to be traded so she could be on the same team as her wife, no big deal. Role players are expendable, they're easily replaced. But when the cancer's in a leadership position, when it's a coach or a star player, you have a very serious problem that needs to be addressed immediately. And for some reason, the Fever organization, they refuse to address the problem. Now, in fairness to Steph White, maybe Caitlin Clark is the problem here. Do I think that's the case? Obviously not, but I can't sit here and tell you with certainty that Caitlin Clark is not the problem. What I do know is the perception is the only thing that matters. For starters, if Caitlin Clark is the problem, you find a way to work it out. You don't trade a once-in-a-lifetime talent. You don't trade the only draw in the league because she's going through some growing pains. Steph White is easy to replace, and your fan base has completely turned against her. Once you lose the fan base, every minor problem gets magnified. Everything becomes a big deal. Caitlin Clark rolls her eyes when Steph White is giving some boring post-game speech. It trends on social media. The Indiana Clarks are down 19-6 at the end of the first quarter against the worst team in the league. Mass panic. What we are seeing right now in Indianapolis, we have not seen this in Caitlin Clark's brief WNBA career. The magic is gone. This fan base is on life support. Again, I watched the first half of the game last night. From the minute the game started, the arena silent. On the first defensive possession, the arena tried to get the crowd to chant defense. No one participated. If Steph White is fired, is it ideal for Caitlin Clark to have 3 head coaches in 3 years? No. But you know what else isn't ideal? Thousands of empty seats at home games. Tickets, which were once selling for a minimum of $100, those same tickets are now selling for $10. A fan base, which used to be one of the most passionate fan bases in sports, not just the WNBA, the Caitlin Clark fan base used to be one of the most passionate fan bases in all of sports. That fan base is on life support. Excitement has been replaced with dread, positivity replaced with negativity. What you're doing is not working. And the longer you wait, the harder it is to recover. And that's if you can recover. You gotta remember, this is not the NBA. This isn't a league where generations of families are emotionally invested in teams. Your fan base is invested in one player, and that fan base is losing patience. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.